I have now managed to make 2 incredibly in-depth videos on Souls-likes, one for Lords of the Fallen and one for Lies of P, and somehow I keep getting the same comment but with different words. Sounds like you're bad and the game is too hard for you, and that's why you don't think it's fun. And this is of course referring to my criticisms on Lords of the Fallen. Now I know that these people haven't watched the videos where I very specifically mention multiple times how easy I think Lords of the Fallen is, and it might actually be one of my bigger criticisms of it. And they definitely don't understand when I say that it's not that it's difficult or too easy, it's that it's not fun, and that's a different thing. The Lords of the Fallen is the perfect example for this because people keep telling me that I don't find it fun because I'm bad at the game. And that argument could make sense if you just don't think about it, like, at all. Because that's a very wrong idea of fun. It equates having fun with being good at a game, and developers should definitely not learn that. Most good game designers know that you should make failing fun so that people want to improve without getting discouraged. And in case it wasn't obvious from the fact that I put my face out on the internet, my ego really isn't what's at risk here. I would have no trouble admitting that I'm really bad at a game. That has nothing to do with my ability to critique it. As long as I'm capable of finishing the game, and if I'm not, as long as I put it out there and explain my perspective, I can still do my job as a critic. And I know it can be surprising that some people like enjoying games instead of measuring their swords on the internet for no reason, just on games. Having said that, I would need to suffer severe brain trauma to not be able to beat Lords of the Fallen. And no shade if the game is too difficult for you. If you're a person who has struggled to beat that game, that's completely fine. It can be more difficult for you for one reason or another, but it's definitely the easiest of all the Souls-likes I've played. But that's not the point. The point is that you can fail at something and still have fun. I mean, you can fail miserably at stuff and have fun. And when the Souls genre popped onto the scene, when Dark Souls came out with their very loud, very brash, prepare to die marketing tactic, we all died. We were all new to it, and we didn't know what to expect or how to deal with it, so we died, but we had fun dying. We had fun overcoming the challenge and discovering the things that the game had for us. It was so compelling that we had fun dying over and over again. And Lords of the Fallen, in many of its design decisions, take steps to ensure that you can't have fun. There's no fun allowed. That's not what we want from you here. Because yes, while having fun is completely subjective, from a design perspective, you can design something that objectively is there to not be fun. So first let's talk about the subjective part, and then we'll break down how to objectively make things not fun, and how Lords of the Fallen manages to do it, I think, by mistake. So whatever you enjoy doing, it doesn't matter what it is or for whatever reason it might be, if you do it and have fun, that's valid. Some people find getting stuck on puzzles frustrating, and some people find it enticing. Some people cry at getting stuck on things, and others find it motivating. Some people hate receiving freebies, and other people view it as a game skipping the boring part to get to the good part. But one of my favorite examples of how fun, especially in video games, can be so subjective, and how it's the beautiful part of games, comes from my own personal experience. When I was playing Valheim with a group of my friends, we each did different things in the game because we all naturally gravitate towards different things. One of my best friends didn't build anything. He just collected resources and brought them at camp, and then would catalog them in chests and put up signs indicating what section was for what resources. And if we were all playing together at the same time, he would just ask me what I needed, what we needed for base to build the stuff we wanted to build, and then he would go out and collect it. I naturally gravitated more towards the role of the architect. I was building everybody's homes, building a big central base, all of these different things, and just going crazy with these ideas, while other people did different things. One was really obsessed with hunting, another one was always trying to get a party together to go to the more rare resources in the dungeon-like areas. You know, different things. But I found so much fun in pitching crazy build ideas, and fighting against the game's limitations, trying to break them. It made me feel clever, like, oh, you think I can't build this high, but I will find a way to build this high. And I think a lot of people did, just from looking at the builds back then. But it's important to note that I don't like creative modes in these sorts of games. I like to earn my resources, and when I play solo, I find a lot of satisfaction in collecting all of those resources efficiently to then build something amazing. I remember that a couple of days later, I told him that I would go with him to go gather some resources that we needed for stuff, and he told me not to go. He told me to stay there and just keep building and he'll bring me everything. And I asked him, why? Like, just let me go with you, it's fine. And he said to me that he enjoys just relaxing on his own, finding the most optimal way to cut down trees or to bait enemies into cutting them down for him while chatting to us in voice chat, while just hanging out with friends. And that clearly I enjoyed going absolutely crazy. He told me that I was like a little kid, that he hadn't heard me in so many years be so excited about something so stupid, that I was just so filled with joy of asking all of our other friends, hey, how do you want your house? Because I was thinking we could build it here and then we could connect it to this other house in this way. Wouldn't that be sweet? And that he was enjoying his own fun because he wanted to de-stress, but he found it very infectious and like a very good time to see everybody so excited. And not only did collecting the resources help him relax from, you know, working a job all day, but it also made him feel really good that he was enabling everyone else to build out their crazy ideas by being the person that collects all the resources and brings them back to camp. So what this story taught me is not only that one of my best friends is going to be an excellent parent one day, but that even if to you something sounds insanely boring, someone else can find it therapeutic, somebody else can find it genuinely fun. And that's great. That's the beauty of video games, that we have so many different kinds of games and so many games that accommodate so many different people that we can all find something fun. So then how can something be objectively not fun? Well, that's the twist. You can find it fun to overcome things that are unfun or to explore them. You can find enjoyment in things that are unfun. Fear and Hunger, I think, is a great example of this. It's a game that purposefully is unfair and puts you into situations that are punishing by no fault of your own. The game just decides, up to random chance, that you're done and you got to start over. But the way that it builds its systems of mystery and intrigue and how a lot of progressing through the game is based on you acquiring knowledge makes that fun for some people. Definitely not for everyone, but that is very similar to Dark Souls. Not in the unfair part, but yes, in the obtaining knowledge and thinking, oh, now I can use this to overcome those challenges. Lords of the Fallen doesn't do these things. The main complaint in design of Lords of the Fallen is the excessive amount of enemies and how they're just badly designed to actually fight them. The idea itself of fighting large groups of enemies is not unfun. That is actually very fun depending on who you ask, and could be really fun in a Souls-like. You don't have to ask me. I use Dynasty Warriors as a substitute for therapy. The reason it's unfun is because how it is designed. So in Lords of the Fallen, you can find yourself in situations where you just can't win. But it's because the design of the systems in Lords of the Fallen. So you can have a large number of enemies all attacking you at once with slightly off timings. And that means that even dodging an enemy can lead to you taking damage, which feels very unrewarding because you're doing what the game tells you to do. What you're supposed to learn to do, which is dodge correctly, is now being punished by you taking damage anyways, and that's not fun. Because if I present to you a series of systems and tell you this is how to do it correctly, and when you do it, I say, ha, joke's on you, it doesn't matter if you do it correctly, I'm still gonna screw you over. That's not fun. One of the elements of this is how certain situations, including just existing in Umbral, means that enemies constantly spawn. So you can find yourself in a situation where there's a ton of enemies, a ton of melee grunts, enemies from range, and some bigger threats like the wasp-like things all attacking you. And to react to that, you need to dodge carefully, position very carefully, or guard. But at the same time, if you're not eliminating them quickly enough, you can be in an equilibrium situation where new enemies are coming in at just the same rhythm as you're taking them out. So you're eventually going to be withered down no matter how defensively you play or how much you guard or whatever decision you make around it. When those situations happen, your only real choice is to eat the resource cost of having to heal up later, but to find a good opportunity to tank damage to take out those enemies. And that doesn't feel good because ideally with optimal play, you shouldn't take any damage. You shouldn't need to sacrifice resources to get out of this. But there is simply no way to overcome the challenge presented by the game when a fundamental part of these games, things like no damage runs, is that if you're good enough, you can overcome it. In those situations when agency is taken away from the player is when it becomes unfun. You're just a passenger for the ride and you have to choose which shit sandwich you want to eat. I mean, sure, you could have made a build beforehand, or afterwards you can find fun designing a build to specifically counter these situations. Or you can find some range strategy, you can find things to circumvent this issue, including one of the reasons I say that the game is so easy, or at least was on release. I don't know how this is balanced now. You can just go a magic build and just plop down a healing circle on the ground and this problem kind of disappears. But before you ever reach a situation like that, most players, normal players, will find themselves in a situation that is a Kobayashi Maru. I don't actually like Star Trek, and I think I've watched like the movies maybe, but I still know that that means no win situation, and it's now a part of my regular day-to-day speech patterns. So yeah, a Kobayashi Maru. And these sorts of unfair situations pop up in a lot of other ways too. I criticize the game for the aggressive tracking that you have on a lot of your moves means that when you're fighting constantly on precipices and like very small narrow things that hang above instant death pits, it's no longer about only understanding your enemy's moveset and yours, it's about small pixels that are really difficult to calculate with how big the movements are, that your next swing won't throw you overboard and just get you killed for what feels like no fault of your own. Oh, you should know that your attack can sometimes go farther depending on the distance the enemy is at, and that momentum can carry you over the edge. Just, come on. Seriously? If I don't feel like I'm in control of my character, if that agency is taken away from me, it's not fun. So the situations themselves aren't necessarily difficult, and there's a ton of ways to make the game super easy. And even when you're in those situations, the ideal outcome that you can hope for doesn't really require skill. It requires the most basic of skills in these sorts of games, which is recognizing the patterns of the very low damage grunt enemies and the very telegraphed attacks of the bigger ones that tend to be in these mixes, and choosing the right moment to tank some damage but kill off some enemies in exchange. That's all you need to do. The worst possible situation is for you to panic and then just get chained to death by a lot of different enemies attacking at once, which is the one thing you have to watch out for. And I would understand if somebody is panicking, because the game, like I said, finds ways to put you in terrible situations constantly in ways that feel unfair, be that by constant ambushes or by you lost your normal axiom life by falling off an edge while trying to attack an enemy. So now you're being chased by 17 different things in the umbral realm while also fighting a regular enemy that is hard, that is actually difficult and was designed as a more discrete encounter. And within all of these like aggravating circumstances, you can panic. But in the most standard ones of, hey, here's just a very badly designed combat encounter with too many enemies, you just have that basic Kobayashi Maru, and getting out of it doesn't require some new sacred super secret god gamer skill. All you're encountering is a badly designed system that feels frustrating, unfair, and because of that, because of how it takes away your agency in solving the problem once you are in it, unfun. It feels like in a MOBA or a fighting game, you get hit by like the most ridiculous hitbox in the world, you know, that you watch the replay and you're like, there's no way that hit me. That doesn't feel like, oh wow, Now this is a real challenge. This is getting interesting. In that situation, you simply call bullshit, you probably sigh, and move on. Much like I'm hopefully moving on from talking about Lords of the Fallen. I have much better games to talk about, and if you want to hear me talk about them, and hey, you have the 2 big video essays and a whole playlist on my long-form analysis here on the channel, you can also go ahead and subscribe and like this video and all the other things that YouTubers say that you should do. I hope I've addressed this once and for all. I've been Mugthief. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.